Hi everyone, today we are going to read Chapter 11 of Pigza Swallowed the Key by Jack Gantos. Chapter 11 is called Shifting Gears. I was bouncing an orange Nerf ball against the front door as I sat on the porch. I did it over and over for about an hour. I wasn't locked out. I was just waiting for Mom. When I saw her turn the corner on Queen Street about 5 houses down, I just kept throwing the ball harder and harder until she started up the sidewalk. Then I turned and I let it all out. "He said you were part of the big picture problem," I shouted. "I said I cut Maria's nose off, not you. And he said this was not all about Maria's nose. This was about how I make decisions. I told him I had dud meds, and he wanted to know what doctors you had taken me to. I told him I didn't know that and that you rescued me from Grandma, and he said special ed was going to help me get better. What does that mean?" "Calm down. You don't have to shout, and stop picking at your head," she said, and glanced over her shoulder to see if the neighbors were listening. "Let's go inside and take some medicine and talk about it. And who is he, anyway?" "Special ed," I replied. "Oh yeah, the guy with 2 names," she muttered. We went into the house and I kept talking about Mom didn't listen. "This place is a mess," she said, and shook her head. "What have you been doing?" "I was flipping out," I shouted. "The bus driver called me a foster child, and I thought they had taken you away because of what I had done to Maria. I called you at work, but you wouldn't come to the phone. So I kept calling, but Tiffany said you were unavailable, and I thought they arrested you instead of me. Then later I thought you got sick of me and ran off again, and I told that to special ed, and he said that my home life was a big part of my problem." "You told me you were not going to tear the house apart looking for your meds," she said. "I had a bad day," I said. "We all have bad days," she replied. "You just have to deal with them." Mom reached into her purse and took out the plastic vial of the medicine for me. She shook one pill into her hand. "You didn't leave a number where you could be reached. Otherwise, I would have called you back." She slipped half a pill between my lips. After I swallowed, I went to the refrigerator to get her Mountain Dew as she pulled the amaretto out from under the sink. She mixed herself a drink, and I dropped a red cherry in it. "So he said I'm to blame?" she asked after a minute. "He wanted to know how I felt after you abandoned me." "I left you with your grandmother." "She was mean," I said, "and I told that to special ed too." "What else did you tell him?" "About Dad, and about our days, from when I wake up to when I go to bed, everything." "Did you tell them I love you and I go to work every day at the beauty parlor and listen to everyone talk about their perfect kids and how sick that makes me because, for one, I don't believe that their kids are perfect because no one is, and two, they pretend their kids are perfect so they can look down at kids like you and parents like me?" She stood up and made another amaretto sour. "If you have 2 drinks, does that mean I can have 2 meds?" "No, it does not. And I wish you wouldn't go around telling strangers what we do at home. Special ed said he's here to help me and that things would get worse before they'd get better." "He's right on that score," she said. "Darn right. You can tell him things might get worse for him too." And she drank that drink down like it was water and mixed another while I just stared at her. "No, don't tell him that," she said, calming down. "It was a bad day for me too. I thought about you at work all day and I worried about you, and the more I thought about you, what you would tell them about us, the more embarrassed I was. I came back for you, but just coming back isn't good enough. It's not just about having a roof over our heads. It's about what is in our heads. Do you get what I'm saying?" "Yeah," I said. "I spoke with a diet lady today And she said I don't eat right for my body, too. Now, what did you tell her? Mom asked. And she lost her cool again. That I like chocolate donut holes and tater tots and nachos, and that you never make me eat what I don't like. And what's wrong with that? She said I need vegetables and salads and grains, and I asked if I take vitamins. I told her I eat a Reese's peanut butter cup every morning because you said peanut butter was good for me. I need another drink, she said. Special ed asked me if you drink, I said. She whipped around with the amaretto bottle in her hand. And what did you tell him? That you drink, I said. You do. I pointed at the bottle in her hand. See? And special ed said that if I didn't tell the truth, I wouldn't get better. Well, I spoke with Mr. Van Ness today, she said, and mixed the drink. It's the same guy, I said. He's special ed. I know, she said. He called me after you left his office. What did he say? I'm not telling, she said. That's one of the differences between you and me. I know how to keep my mouth shut. I can't help it that I talk too much, I said. Try, she said. Try not drinking, I said. Why is it that one of us has to be right and one of us has to be wrong, she asked. Why does it always come down to that? Don't ask me why, I said, and pushed my fingers into my ears to not hear the word. She pulled my hands away. Sometimes you really get under my skin, she said. Sometimes I think it was easier chasing after your dad than it is chasing after you. But you love me more, I said. You said so yourself. You are such an imp, she growled. I just smiled my big smile, the one where my eyes close up and I can't see anything but the inside of my face, which is like wearing a great big Halloween yellow smiley face mask. Come on, she said. Let's be bad for another day and order a pizza. Can we get vegetables on it? I asked. I promised I'd eat more. Yeah, like what? Mushrooms, green peppers, onions? Don't forget the salad. Get real, she said. They don't make a solid pizza. Salad is the opposite of pizza. Salad is for rabbits, and pizza is for people who love cheese and sausage and pepperoni. And that happens to be us. In the morning, I was sitting on the porch eating a slice of leftover extra cheese and vegetable pizza and waiting for the bus when Mrs. Maxi pulled up in her car and waved to me. And she was smiling too, which was a good thing, or I would have turned right around and dashed into the house and locked the door. When she got out of her car, she was carrying a brown paper bag and her purse. How's it going? She asked as she climbed the steps. Pretty good, I said. Now that I'm eating more vegetables, you want a bite? No thanks, she replied, and shook her head at me just like my mom does. We've all been thinking of you. That made me feel a lot better than pizza. I think of you too, I replied, and I'll be back. I told you I would. Well, keep making progress, and I'm sure you will. I got my courage up to ask the next question. How's Maria? I asked. I went to her house to say I was sorry, and her dad chased me away. Maria is no longer at our school, Mrs. Maxi said. Her family put her in a Catholic school. We have kids from Catholic school and special ed, I said. They still wear their uniforms. I know, said Mrs. Maxi. We told her parents that the accident could have happened anywhere, but they were very concerned for Maria. I still feel real bad about what happened, I said. We all do, Joey, Mrs. Maxi said, but we have to get over it and move on. Now let me show you what I've brought. She removed a folder from the bag and showed me my math, English, geography, history, and science lessons. Do these here with your mom, and you can keep up with the class for the next few weeks. I'll keep bringing your homework so that when they send you back, you won't be too far behind. Okay? Does this mean they are sending me back in 6 weeks, I asked. That is up to someone else, she said. But Mr. Van Ness called and asked me to keep up with your assignments. So if and when you do come back, you can jump right in. Then, before she left, I said, "I'm sorry." "I know you are, Joey. We all are. But we can stop being sorry now. It's time to shift gears and make sure it doesn't happen again. Okay?" "I'm sorry," I said again. I held my arms out for a hug, and she gave me one, and it was really good. And when I let go of her, I said, "I'm shifting gears and making certain it won't happen again." "Good," she said. "Very good." And she reached into her teacher bag and pulled out a strip of sticky gold stars. She peeled one off and pressed it onto my forehead. "This," she said, "is for shifting gears." I carefully touched the star and felt the 5 gold points, one for each subject. "My mom said when I'm better she'll get me a dog." "That would be very nice," she said. "I have to run. You know how the class can get when I'm not there on time." I remembered. She turned and walked down the steps, and I could see pizza sauce on the back of her dress where I had put my hands during our hug. "Mrs. Maxi!" I hollered and waved the pizza in the air. "I already packed a lunch," she called back, before I could tell her about the handprints. "Thanks." As soon as she left, I wiped my hands on my pants and dumped all the stuff she brought me inside the house. In a few minutes, the special ed bus pulled up. I got on, and Charlie was waiting for me. "Sit here," he said, and gave me a head nod, just like yesterday. "Want some pizza?" I asked. "Sure," he said, and I held it up to his mouth, and he took a bite. "Be careful," I said. "It's a little messy." It was a big day, and it wasn't going well. It was my turn to see the doctor, and I think that had me all overexcited. I had taken my meds in the morning, but I still couldn't keep my mind on my work. I had a reading teacher who made me read picture books instead of chapter books because she said the pictures would help me understand the words that were beyond my reading level. But I just wasn't paying attention. Then, in math, I couldn't do my drills because inside my head were loud, scary doctor thoughts, and I couldn't seem to hear the teacher. Recess was about the best thing to do because I just could run around the swing set while dodging between the kids who were swung back and forth like wrecking balls trying to knock my block off. Finally, at the end of the day, I was sitting in a small examination room with special ed, and he was looking at his watch. There was a cabinet next to me with lots of neat little stuff inside. I opened it and took out the Band-Aids. "Joey," special ed said, "put those back." "I was just looking at them. There's no harm in that." "While we are waiting," he said in his fake doctor voice, "I think we should talk about something important." "Yeah," I said. "Grandma always said not to waste time with this little stuff." "The doctor is going to be concerned with your physical condition and your medication," he said. "That is his job. My job is to be concerned about your behavior, which is why we have to be a team. Long after the doctor gets your medications regulated, you and I will be working together." "I think I've had a very good behavior," I said. "I haven't been in trouble for days." "That is good," he said. "But we need to do more than just avoid getting into trouble. We need to focus on how to make the right decisions so you aren't in trouble in the first place." "What does that mean?" "The Band-Aids, Joey," he said, pointing to the cabinet. "If I left you here alone for a few minutes, what would you do with them?" "Nothing." "Nothing?" he said, doubting me. "Nothing," I said again. "Then let's test that out," he said, and stood up. "I'll be out in the hall." As soon as the door closed, I began to rip open the Band-Aids right away. I pulled up my t-shirt and started sticking them all over my chest and belly. I must have gotten about 20 of them on when I heard special ed say, "Good morning, doctor." I quickly hid the wrappers on the windowsill behind the curtain, pulled my shirt down over my belly, and took my seat. The door opened and the doctor rushed in. "I'm Dr. Preston," he said. "Sorry I'm late. My fault." I liked him right away because for once, what went wrong wasn't my fault. He set his briefcase on the table and removed his jacket. "Is Mrs. Pigza joining us?" he asked, first looking at me and then at Special Ed, who had taken his seat. "She couldn't make it at this time," Special Ed replied, "but we've spoken and I'll keep her informed." The doctor pursed his lips. Right, he said dryly, as if he were thinking wrong. As if he were thinking my whole life was wrong and it started with my mom because she didn't care enough about me to make it over here. Well, he said, smiling again, here's what we are going to do. He snapped open his briefcase and removed my file. First, I'm going to give you a quick checkup. Then we're going to run some tests. Not awful tests, but we have to draw some blood and you have to pee in a cup. Didn't sound too bad to me. I've had to do worse things, I said. One time I was with Grandma on a bus and she made me pee in a Coke bottle. I get the picture, Dr. Preston said as he opened my file and looked at what was written in it intensely, as if he had just cut open my chest and was watching all my organs work. When he looked up, he took a deep breath, then started talking. You seem like a nice, smart kid, so I'm going to be honest and give you both the easy news and the hard news. Joey, we all feel that the meds you're taking now are not doing the job, and with better medication, your attention disorder can be controlled. That part we can manage. But the hard part for us is determining just the right medications. The written test and the question and answer test help us chart your behavior. You know, can't sit still, have trouble concentrating, strays from your tasks and all. I wouldn't tell you this so bluntly unless you didn't know it already, and I know you and Mr. Vaness have talked about this. I wanted to tell him that I had talked with every teacher I'd ever known about the same stuff, but special ed had told me earlier to let the doctor talk and my job was to listen. So I chewed on the inside of my left cheek because I had chewed up the inside of my right cheek one the day before, and it still hurt. What I'm getting at is this. What we don't know is what, medically speaking, is going on inside of you. And that we need to know before we can get you on the proper medication. So here is what we are going to do. I want you to go to the Children's Hospital in Pittsburgh and get a test. It sounds scarier than it is. It's called a brain SPECT test. They take pictures of your brain, kind of like x-rays, only a lot more detailed and in color. The test does not hurt one bit. Is there something wrong with my brain, I asked? Because I've seen a lot of people around here with sick brains and they don't look right or act right. Special ed jumped in. The doctor is saying he just wants to get the test so he can make sure nothing else is wrong before he gives you the right kind of medicine and the right amount. Exactly, said Dr. Preston. Can my mom come? Absolutely, the doctor said. In fact, she has to. I don't think she can get off work, I said, and looked at special ed. She works a lot. We'll see to it, special ed said. Don't worry. Joey, the doctor said as he pulled a stethoscope out of his pocket, I want to listen to your heart. Sit up here. And he patted the edge of the examination table that was covered with a sheet of paper. I glanced over at special ed and was going to tell him about the Band-Aids, but he just looked at me as if he was so proud of me. Like he was really a good dad. So I hopped up on the table and took a seat. When Dr. Preston lifted my shirt, his face got really worried, and he lowered my shirt again. Mr. Vaness, he said seriously, may I speak with you out in the hall? As soon as they were gone, I began to peel off the Band-Aids, but I only had a few off before special ed shot back into the room. Joey, he said in a very strict voice. The doctor was right behind him. Explain to the doctor what you did. I looked at him. I decorated my belly with Band-Aids, I said. What's the big deal? The doctor thought you had been abused, special ed said in the same tight voice. That's the big deal. No way, I said. Nobody has beat me up since Grandma did with a fly swatter. The doctor continued his exam, then turned to special ed. I'm finished for now. Have the nurse fill in his chart, he said, and run the blood and urine test. Then he stepped over to the desk and closed his briefcase. I'm sorry to be in such a hurry, Joey, but until I get all those test results, I can't make a decision in regard to medication. And there are a lot of ways to go. I stood up and he shook my hand and I looked right into his eyes because Mom told me that if you look into a person's eyes, you can tell if they are lying or not. Am I okay? I said. His eyes stayed right on mine. They didn't slide left or right or blink and roll back or do something else like look at the door or his watch. My feeling is that you will be okay. You do have a medical problem. You also have some behavior problems. I think both of those problems can be managed. I think your brain is fine. You have slugged it out for a long while and now you've hit the wall. You couldn't have done that if something were seriously wrong. We're going to be doing the test just to be on the safe side. I'm only asking because if it's my brain and I need to know, and I'll see my mom and she'll want to know too. Special Ed stood up and nodded to the doctor. I'll take care of this end of things, he said, and keep you posted. Bye, Joey, the doctor said. I'll see you as soon as we get the results from the tests. Then he opened the door, and I could hear him marching down the hallway. I just waved at where he had been as if suddenly I was only 2 years old and didn't know hello and goodbye, and would have waved no matter if I was coming or going. And I wanted to keep looking at the door because I figured as soon as I turned around, Special Ed was going to get on me about the Band-Aids. But he didn't. He didn't even ask about them. Instead, he put his hand on my shoulder. How are you holding up? He asked. I was trying to be hopeful. To look at on the bright side, as Mom said, but thinking that there was something wrong with my brain was scaring me. I had already seen so many kids with bad brains, and the worst part is that some of them looked just like me, looking normal. But like me, there was something wrong inside. I'm not doing so good, I said. I was going to say that I was scared, but I had said that so many times already that I thought it was dumb to keep saying the same thing over and over, as if my brain wasn't working right. Do you want to call your mom? He asked, and picked up the phone. He had already dialed the number by the time I said yes. And that ends chapter 11. Thanks for coming and listening. Bye.